All right, in this video, I'm going to show you how I turned a 60-cent letter into a $39,587.74 net payday to me in 36 days, selling a piece of vacant land that I didn't have to do any cold calling for, that I didn't even have to own myself, and more importantly, where I didn't have to risk any of my capital to get the deal besides the 60 cents that I used to send that letter. So let's dive in. And before I do, I want to give a huge, bold disclaimer. This is not going to be some crazy marketing hype video. I have nothing to sell you at the end, literally nothing, no call to book. There's nothing. I just want to give you as much value as I can. So listen along and let's dive in. Now, big elephant in the room. Let's talk about some proof. Okay. So today is May 18th. This got posted to my account yesterday. So this is the wire that I received for selling this piece of land, $39,587.74. That was net to me after all fees. Okay. Let's look at the first settlement statement. So I bought this with a partner. So for purposes of his security, because I'm making this video about what I'm doing, not his business, I'm going to go ahead and take out some details in terms of all that type of stuff you see blurred out. So with that being said, we spent $51,363.00 to acquire the deal. Now we got this on 4/10/24. Okay, that's when we bought it. And we sold it on 5/16/24, and we sold it for $120,000. Okay. Now with the closing costs, realtor fees, etc., it's about $12,000. I'll break down the math in a second. So we got $107,916.91 after that. So to give all the math, to break it down really clearly, so we bought it for $51,363. Okay. We sold it for $120,000. The closing costs were $12,083.09. And then net after all fees, and I'm including obviously the purchase price here, there was a net profit of $56,553.91. Now, like I said earlier, I didn't put any of my own money into this deal, which I'm going to explain to you exactly how I did in a second. So my partner got a 30% cut of the net. So he got $16,966.17, and I got my 70% cut. Again, I put no money into the deal, and I got $39,587.74. That's the wire that you see here. So at this point, you're probably wondering, all right, how'd you do this? Don't worry. That's what this video is about. I'm going to explain step by step how I found the deal, how I acquired it, how we sold it, everything you need to know, and a little bit more. Let's dive in. So step number one was finding a good vacant land market. Okay. Now, what does good mean? Well, I'm looking specifically for this marketing campaign for areas in the US where I could buy 10 to 20 acre tracts for roughly about $50,000 and then resell them for about $100,000 or so. Okay. I do a lot of my investing in the Southeast. So that means in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, etc. But I really want to start breaking out into some new areas of the country. And so I decided to go after the Midwest. Now, this deal in particular, I got in a specific county in Illinois. Now, I'm still marketing to that county. It's a little honey hole for me. So I'm not going to give away the specific county in this video. However, I will give away exactly how I got the deal in the first place. Okay. Now, the reason that I picked this particular county is because land is selling fast there. Okay. Now, what does fast mean? Well, to me, fast means that land is selling in under 90 days. And here's a big misconception you understand. Most people think that land sells slow. Because, well, they're partially right. In certain markets, land does sell really slow. It might take 6 to 12 months to move. Okay, and there's some other factors at play. But the truth is this, is that there's a ton of land markets in the US where land sells way faster than that. I'm talking 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, right? And if you know where those markets are, you solve for demand. So what I'm doing when I pick a market, the most important thing that I'm doing is I'm looking for a market where land is selling fast, meaning sub 90 days. Because that way, I don't need to do a bunch of work trying to sell the land to people because I know that there's people in the market that already want to buy it, right? Or also wouldn't be selling that quickly, right? So that's the first thing that we solve for, okay? Now, step number two is I need to send a direct mail offer to the landowners in that area, and that's exactly what I did, okay? So what does that mean? Well, once I identified the market that I wanted to go after in Illinois, okay, and specifically the range that I wanted to go after, so I said I wanted to target 10 to 20 acres. There's nothing super special about that specific acre range. The only reason I did it in this county is because the numbers worked out where I could be buying land for about $50,000 and reselling for about $100,000, right? So I care more about the numbers on the deal than the specific size of the acres. That's what's more important to me. Okay, and that's why I went after it because the numbers work on this. So what I did is I needed to find the data of, okay, what is the contact information for these people? So I used a site called DataTree. All right. Now, Data Tree basically has all the real estate records for everything in the U.S. Okay, from houses, land, commercial buildings. Like you can find anything on here. And so what I need to do is I know that I'm going to target these 10 to 20 acres. Well, I need to find the names and the mailing address of the specific parcels that I want to go after. That way I can send them my offer in the mail. Okay. This could be an entire another video, so I'm not going to go super deep into it, but just to kind of show you an idea. Let's say I want to do a search. So I live in Miami. Let's say I want to do Miami-Dade County. And there's a ton of customizations that you can do here, like an insane amount, but let's just keep it simple and say I'm targeting between 10 and 20 acres. All right. So it's going to pull all the records for people in Miami-Dade County that own 10 to 20 acre lots. Hit view results. All right, it'll pull it up, and then I can export the data, right there. And when I export it, like I said, it's going to give me their name, the parcel number, their mailing address, all the information that I need to get in contact with them. Okay. Now, once I've done that, remember how earlier I said I had a 60 cents letter I sent them? That's exactly what I did. I pay 60 cents per letter. And so I sent them a letter offering to buy their land. Now, it's not as simple as saying, hey, I just sent a letter, right? There's a few different types of offers that you can send. And I'm going to break those down, and I'm going to tell you about the best one. Okay, so the three offer types are this. There's a neutral letter, which is basically just saying, hi, I'm interested in buying your land, right? There's a little more to it, but there's no price attached to it. You're just saying that you're interested. The second way is called a range offer. A range offer is saying, hi, I'm interested in buying your land between this price and this price, okay? And the third, and my favorite, is called a blind offer. It's saying, hey, I'm interested in purchasing your land at this specific price. Now, the reason that works so well is because although you're going to get less leads than you would on a neutral letter, you're going to get way more qualified leads because they've seen the price that you're offering, and that's what matters. Part of the reason that people have trouble getting land deals, or even if you think about other industries like wholesaling and why it's so difficult, is because you have to sort through a ton of bad leads. So if you could find a way to get higher quality, more motivated leads in your pipeline, everything downstream is easier. And that's what blind offers help you do, because you're qualifying based on the price that you're sending. If they're not interested, they're not going to call. Simple, right? Obviously, yeah, there might be some stragglers that call that are like annoyed, like, F you. But we have a way to solve for that to make sure that we don't talk to those people. The people that come into our CRM, the leads that we get, they're going to be qualified. And that's what I did here. Okay. So specifically, the offer amount that we're going to give, it depends on a lot of factors in terms of, how hot the market is, how fast things are moving, if it's a saturated market, blah, blah, blah. But in general, I'm going to offer anywhere between 40 to 60% of market value when I send my offers out. Okay. And again, it depends. My general rule of thumb is that if I'm in a new area, I'm probably going to go a bit lower when I'm testing it, right? It might be the upper 40s, like 49%, 50%. And then if I'm in a place, I'm like, hey, I know this place is really hot. Like I'll tell you, like Aiken County, South Carolina, at the time of recording, tons of investors are there, right? If you want to stand out from the noise and get a call back, you're going to need to offer more. So I might offer 60%. Okay. Now, this is a really, really important note to take. With land investing, where we are right now, right? This isn't where it was 10 years ago in the sense of like people are offering 20 cents on the dollar and getting away with it. And sometimes you can still get away with that, but it's usually through negotiation, not through the initial offer. Okay. We still are able to buy land at like 50% off, which is amazing. And we need to capitalize on that because we've probably got a solid 3 to 5 years to really get in and hit it hard before it gets a little more competitive. But compared to wholesaling or anything that has to do with the house world, this is still a blue ocean opportunity. But with that being said, if you want to stand out from the noise, just offer more, right? So like offering a super low amount of just like, hey, I'm going to do 35% or something, you're probably not going to get a call back. So my strategy, what I do is I'm going to offer more. I generally offer about 55%, sometimes even more when I go into markets, because I know out of all the people that may contact them, especially if it's a hot place, I'm going to get the call back. And then when I'm on the phone with them, I can negotiate down, right? And that's where you get real good steep discounts. So keep that in mind. Beyond that, so what I did is I need to find, okay, what's the market value for the land? Because that's going to dictate, obviously, how much I'm going to offer. Essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm finding the price per acre. Okay, and an important note to understand, when you're finding the price per acre, it's different for every acreage range. And a range would be something like this. So we look at 1 acre and under as a certain range. We look at 1 to 2 acre as another range. 2 to 5, 5, 10, 10, 20, 20, 40, 40 to 100. Okay, and they all price differently. Now, just because, let's say we're in Miami-Dade County, and I'm giving hypothetical numbers here. let's say an acre goes for $100,000 here. Okay, that might actually be true. Obviously, real estate's very expensive here. If I buy a 100-acre lot, that doesn't mean that it's going to go for $100,000 an acre. That's not how it works. It's like the Costco effect, right? So at Costco, when you buy units in bulk, the unit price goes down, right? So to keep it simple, the more acres that you buy, the less on a per acre price you're going to pay, right? So you have to keep that in mind, that just because 1 acre is trading at this amount, if I'm buying 10 to 20 acres, it's not going to sell for the same per acre amount. So I need to know how much is 10 to 20 selling. That's what I did here, right? And what I found out is that 10 to 20 acres in this county were selling for about $5,000, right? So if I was going to buy a 20-acre tract, it would sell for roughly $100,000. Meaning, if I know I'm going to go in and offer 50% of market value, I'm going to offer half of that, $50,000, right? So that's how I created the offer. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, why would someone ever sell their land for 50% off? Well, let me explain. And I'm going to do this by analogy, okay? Have you or anyone that you know ever sold a car to a car dealership? I hope the answer is yes. You probably have. Like you or someone you know. Why did you do that, though? Or why did they do that? Convenience, right? So most people, when presented with the option of, hey, I could sell a car, to CarMax right now, and get a check in the next hour or two. I drive there, they cut me a check, or I could spend weeks trying to sell this on Facebook Marketplace. Most people are going to go with CarMax or some car dealership, right? The reason we do that is because it's easy, it's fast, it's convenient. Okay, obviously, yes, there's some people out there who are car enthusiasts, who want to get top dollar and they love negotiating, so they'll do it on Facebook Marketplace. But that's not most people, right? And the other thing is, when you're selling to a car dealer, you're not getting the top dollar. You know that their business model is they're going to offer you money for the car. You're going to leave. They're going to clean it up, take some photos. Maybe they do some little stuff to it, and they're just going to resell it, for more money. Like that's it. That's the business, right? But you're okay with that because you're getting a fair offer and it's fast. And land works the same way. That's exactly why someone would sell their land at a discount, right? And this is what I cannot stress enough. This is the big difference between wholesaling and flipping houses and flipping land. This is the major difference. It is way easier to do land because there is less of an emotional attachment to it. Let me say that again. It is way easier to do land because there is less of an emotional attachment to the property, right? And because of that, people are willing to sell it at a discount more easily. Okay, people sell land at a discount for a variety of reasons. It might be because they have a medical procedure coming up, right? Maybe they want to give the money to their kids and send them to college. Maybe they've never been out there, right? There's a million reasons that they could do that. And here's the thing, a lot of landowners, they're generally on the older side. They might be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, right? And they bought this land decades ago. And so for those people, they normally don't have a use for it anymore because they might have bought it when, I don't know, let's say it's 30 years ago and they had planned on building a home, but their plans changed. That happens a lot. And so now they want to liquidate it, right? And so we're offering them a solution that's easy and convenient. And sure, a lot of these landowners, if they want a top dollar, they could go with a realtor, but that comes with added complexity, right? Because if they're going to sell with a realtor, most likely the realtor is going to say, all right, well, we need to get this in a for sale condition, right? So we're going to have to spruce the property up. You might want to do some clearing. That's a few $1,000s, right? Maybe you're going to hire a professional photographer. That's going to be a few $100. Then they're going to have to deal with all the buyers and the showings and stuff like that. And it's probably going to take about 6 to 12 months to sell. Versus an investor, we're going to come in and we're going to say, hey, you know what? We're going to buy this land from you in the next 2 weeks. We're going to pay all cash. You don't need to do anything to the property. You're good to go. And a lot of landowners will say, hey, you know what? I'm fine with that. I know I'm not getting a top dollar, but I'm willing to do that because it's easy and convenient. And here's the cool thing. And this is what you want to go for. This is a win-win. And this is what makes deals super easy. When you can find landowners that, let's say they bought the land 20 years ago, like I'll give you an example on this. I bought this land for $50,000, right? This guy's owned it for decades. When he bought it, I don't remember the exact price. It's probably like $20,000. So if I give him 50, he's making $30,000. And then because the market's changed, and it's been decades since, I can now sell this land for $100,000. So he gets to make money and I get to make money. That's the ideal scenario, right? Like that is the best case. And that's what you want to shoot for because that's a win-win deal. And for this seller in particular, the reason he let it go was he had some family stuff with his mother where she was getting on the older side. He needed the funds to be able to take care of her. And when you look at it in that way, it's like, all right, well, you need the money quickly within a few weeks. So it's like, what's a better option for this person? Is it to say, you know what, I'm going to wait to get an extra $10,000, $20,000 and put this on the market with a realtor and wait 6 to 12 months? Or let me get rid of this in the next 2 weeks. Let me just use the funds. I'm going to profit from the sale anyways, and then I can go on my merry way. Generally, that's what they're going to take, right? So that's why people sell at a discount. Now, step number 3 was I had to negotiate on the deal. Okay, and actually this one was like really easy. It wasn't too much to do, but I'm going to explain to you my entire call flow and the entire sales process that I use in my deals. So once we receive a lead, right? So the way that it works is on the letter, we have a number to call, and they call into a call center. I use Pat Live. You can reach out to them. I don't have any like affiliate links or anything like that, but they're a 24/7 call center. And what they do is they screen the leads for us to pre-qualify them to make sure they're not tire kickers. So obviously, yes, there's going to be some people that call in, they're angry by the letter or whatever. Well, the good thing is that there's a call center taking it and they just remove them, right? They don't come into our pipeline. That's not a lead to us. A lead is someone who's interested in selling. And so we have a specific set of questions that we have the call center reps ask. And then if they qualify, they then move on to our CRM and we get a new lead, okay? Now, once we get a new lead, so they've already had one call with our company, we're going to call them, and this is going to be us personally calling. Okay, so this is the second call. Now, on this call, it's strictly about building rapport and gathering information. I have 2 goals on this call. Number 1 is to build trust with my prospect. Okay, the way that you build trust is by building rapport. Now, building rapport, I'm not talking about friendly rapport, especially if you're new to sales and you haven't gotten deep, dense sales training. That's what a lot of people think. They think rapport is that, oh, they got to like me. I got to be funny and nice and all this stuff. They don't. They can hate your guts, but they do need to respect you and they need to trust you. You want to have what's called leadership-based rapport. So all of that means is that they see you as a leader in this situation. They see that you are the best person to guide them to an outcome that's going to be beneficial to them. Okay, in this case, it's going to be selling their land and that you're the best person to help with it. That keeps it simple. You don't need to crack jokes and be their buddy on the phone. They just need to trust and respect that you're the best option for them. And just as a side note, like especially if you're on the younger side, maybe you're 18 or something and you're in sales or you've tried wholesaling houses and like, oh, I'm young, I'm not getting the respect that I want. The reason that you're probably having trouble with prospects is because they're like, man, who is this 18-year-old kid on the phone? It's not because you don't have enough friendly rapport with them, you're not buddy. It's because they don't trust that you can solve their problem. And you can. Age has nothing to do with it. It has to do with how you present yourself and how you build rapport. Right? You could be 18 and think that, man, this guy's a genius. He could really help me out. But you have to build the right type of rapport. Okay? That's a whole other video we can talk about. Let's move on to step number 2. So the next goal is I want to find their motivation for selling. It's so important. Why do they want to sell this piece? Why do they call me off of a random letter? What's going on in their life? Because if I know their motivation, this is where I can start to get steep discounts. Because if they're like, hey, I need to sell this thing in the next 2 weeks. I'm strapped for cash, blah, blah, blah. I can get better discounts, right? But I also need to understand, what's their scenario? What's going on? How can I best serve them? Because sometimes for some people, maybe it's that they get a little more money on the deal, but they give us 90 days and we get to shop it around, right? That might be a win for them because they're getting a higher price. Or it might be, hey, I need this thing gone ASAP. And I'd say, we can close on this way quicker, but we get more of a discount because we can say it's high risk on our end. So we just want to know where they're at because that's going to influence everything about the sale. Okay. Now, once I found the motivation, I will always, and I cannot stress this enough, always push them to another call. So I will set what's called an offer call. Now, in this offer call, I'm going to give the final offer. Okay. The reason that I do this, and I've seen this across multiple industries, from land to, I sold roofs at one point in my life. I did millions selling roofs. It was the same exact thing. When you have more touch points and you don't go right there for the kill on a one-call close, there's very few industries where you do that. This is not one of them. Not right now, right? When you extend the sales timeline a bit, get them on another call, what you're doing here, you're doing more touch points. And what's happening is they're trusting you more. You're building more rapport that way. And they're getting more bought in, right? Because now they have to get on another call with you. Okay? Here's the thing. And I've just seen this in myself. I've seen it in other people's businesses. When you're too hot to trot, you just try and close it right there, especially with these types of deals, just because of the way that we're doing the outreach. It would be different if this was coming from an ad, right? If they're clicking on ad, it would be way different. But because we're doing a cold outreach of mail, it's different. So you have to understand that the way that you market influences the way that you sell. long story short, to keep it simple, when they feel like you're too eager and it's too easy, they get skeptical. When they get skeptical, they pull back and become uncertain, and then you have more objections, and it makes it harder to sell. Okay. So by pulling back and saying, hey, you know what? Thanks for the information. I need to take this back to my underwriters to review a couple things. I want to get with you tomorrow to get a final number for you. I can give you a call at 2 or 3 p.m. What's better for you? Right? What you're doing is, and this is all subconscious, what's happening is the prospects are, oh, okay, well, they need to look into this more. Now they're getting more invested because like they don't want to lose the deal. Right? What if you decide to pull out? Like they don't want that to happen. Right? So again, you're just showing them that you're not too eager. So always schedule another call. And sure, once in a while, like there are, outliers. I've had calls that I've one call to close, but in general, and I've just seen it time and time again, it has always behooved me to do a 2-call close. Even if that means like I might have a deal where like the numbers are perfect, everything is good, there's no renegotiation that needs to happen, I'll still pull back. Because again, when it's too easy, the prospect becomes skeptical. You don't want that. All right. So the next call, this is the third call. So remember, they've had one call with our call center. They've had one call with me, and that was just an intro rapport call and me finding their motivation. On this third call, this is the offer call. This is where I'm going to give them the final offer, okay? This is where we really start to negotiate, if needed, okay? Now, in this call, specifically on this deal, there really wasn't much negotiation to do. I mean, we were right on the money with our price. Everything was good, so we were able to lock it up pretty easily, okay? But on other calls, most of the deals, this is where I start getting deeper discounts, negotiating, etc. Okay. This is the stuff that I'll typically negotiate on. It'll fall into one of these buckets. Something about the utilities, right? It could be that the electrical poles are too far away and I have to spend thousands of dollars to move them over. It could be that I need to install well and septic and that's going to cost me $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Road access. It could be an unpaved road. It's not good. I'm going to have to grade the road. It could be landlocked. Obviously, I would negotiate deeply for that. Topography, meaning how steep is the property? Right? So like if the front of the property is level, I'll give you an example. I have a deal I'm working on right now. Front of the property is very level. However, the back of the property slopes down, right? So obviously the portion that slopes down is not as valuable to place that's level. Because let's say I wanted to build multiple homes. I can't build, or at least not easily. It's going to cost me more money if the land is sloping down because I'm going to have to do more work. It's going to cost me more money. So I can negotiate because of that. If there's wetlands, right, on the property, if it's in a flood zone or a floodplain, now that you need to take with a grain of salt because in Florida, and there's just certain areas where tons of properties are in flood zones, but it's fine. So again, take that on a case-by-case basis. It really depends on the state that you're in. And, you want to look around surrounding properties. If people are building on it, it's probably okay. But again, you just have to check because it can affect the insurance, stuff like that. Bad neighbors. And I've had this happen before where, a realtor pulls up to a property and there's people coming out with guns, or there's like a junkyard of cars nearby. Like that's going to diminish the value of that land, because it's not attractive. A buyer's going to go out there and be like, ooh, I don't like this. I feel uncomfortable, right? So those are all points that you can negotiate on, right? Really, you can come up with anything that will adversely affect the sales price and use that as a negotiation point, okay? The way that you negotiate is by this. This is the framework that I use. Hey, we really like the property, but we have a few concerns, okay? And then you want to list the concerns and you want to tie a price to them. Because what you don't want to do is you don't just want to be like, hey, like let's say you sent a letter for $50,000. You don't want to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we looked it over. Most we can do is 30, like with no justification. That will not work, right? They're just going to get pissed off. Like you have to justify it. So this is what I would do. Hey, we really like the property, but we have a few concerns. The first thing that we're kind of worried about is in terms of utilities, we're going to have to install a septic system. And in this area, it's going to run us about $20,000. Okay. The second thing is we're going to have to put a well in, right? That's going to be another 10 grand. So we're looking at about $30,000 in upgrades that we didn't anticipate for when we sent you that offer. So with that being said, the most that we could do in this property would be $20,000, right? Or whatever it is, right? So you're using the justification, you're using numbers to explain this is what we can offer. Okay. Now, an important note, always start the number lower than you actually want to get to, because you need to give room for the negotiation. That doesn't mean you completely like lowball them, right? Like let's say you want to buy it at 50,000, don't offer 10. You know what I mean? But you have to come in low enough because you need to understand that they're going to negotiate. So I'll give you a different example. Let's say I offered them 70,000, but I want the property at 50,000. I'm not just going to be like, the most we can do is 50, because then they're going to be like, well, could you do 65? And then we're going to end up at 60, right? So I want to start even lower. The most we can do is 30. Could you do any better than that? maybe like 60. I don't know. That's kind of tough. Can you meet me in the middle at 50? Yeah, I can do that. See, that's how it works, right? So here's what will happen, okay? When you're negotiating and you start a bit lower, oftentimes they're going to balk. They're going to say something like, nope, won't accept that. They might be abrasive, whatever it might be. All you need to do, you just need to get them to start to give you a number to start that dialogue, okay? And for the people that like will not budge, there's going to be some people like that. They're just, stone cold negotiators. Not everyone's like that. I would say it's like 2 out of 10, right? For those people, you'll get them on a follow-up. You just stay consistent with them because they've already shown interest. Like you will get them eventually. But for everyone else, they're willing to play ball. You just have to know how to do it correctly. Okay? So my favorite line to get them to give me a number, to start that negotiation process, I'll say something like, okay, gotcha. Well, what exactly did you have in mind? What's important is the tone in which I'm saying this. And this is a topic for an entire another video, because what matters more than what you say is how you say it. It communicates a lot more to the prospect. The tone that you want to have is what's called empathetic curiosity, which means you want the prospect to feel like you care and you're curious. Or the secret hack is actually care. You know what I mean? But here's the important thing to understand. When you're trying to get information from someone in a sales type of environment, really anything, if the person feels like you're doing it from a place of genuinely caring about them, they are more likely to open up to you so that you can help them out. And again, the secret hack is like actually care. Like that's a secret hack to sales. If you could actually care about the prospects, you will make way more money than you could ever imagine. So just care. That's it. All right. What you don't want to do when you say this question, like here's an example of tonality you don't want, is you don't want it to be challenging because prospects are going to close up. So if I'm going to say, okay, gotcha. Well, what exactly did you have in mind? What you don't want to do is say, okay, got it. Well, I mean, what did you have in mind? Right? Like that's aggressive. That's abrasive. That's going to cause a prospect to close down and they're going to feel like they're in conflict. When you're in sales, you never want to feel in conflict with the prospect. If you are in conflict, you're not going to win. It's done. You always need to be working with them. It's like you and the prospect need to be on the same team, on the same side of the table, linking arms, working together. That's the frame you need to come from. Okay. And the tonality that you use helps you do that because when they see you as an ally instead of an enemy, that's where you can make deals happen. Again, like I can go on that for some communicationality for like hours and talk about the specific inflections and where I do them and how I do them, and that's a topic for another video. But if you can, instead of practicing that specifically, if you could just think, hey, I'm trying to genuinely care about the prospect and like focus on that, you'll naturally change the tonality. That's the easiest way to do it instead of like practicing these specific inflections. It's just actually care because we all know how to do this. Okay. Now, with that being said, once they say their price, this is where you can really start to negotiate. Okay, so let's say you come in at 30,000 and let's say they say that they want 70,000. This is where we start to do some give and take, right? You could say something like, all right, well, so, I mean, you're at 70,000, I'm at 30. What can we do here? Right? I really want them to start giving me numbers. Like that's my ideal thing. And the way that I'm saying this, it's from a collaborative frame. Like, hey, you're at 70, I'm at 30. I want to make this work. What can we do here? And they might say something like, well, can you meet in the middle? Or could you come up 10 grand or whatever it might be? Okay, it depends. Again, there's a lot more that I can add on negotiations. It'll need another video, but the point of this is that it's a give and take, right? Like it's you have to always budget room that there's going to be some negotiation that's going to go on, and just know that, okay? Now, here's a side note. When you get the prospect to agree to a price, don't be too eager. Don't just take it and say, oh, great, right? You need to tie them down, and then you need to pull back to confirm with your underwriters or your partner or something like that. Here's how I do it. So let's say we were trying to get them down to 50, and we got them to 50. They're like, all right, well, I could do 50. So, all right, great. Instead of just being like, all right, great, well, let me send you the papers. Let's do it right now. You need to tie them down. Okay, this is the tie down phrase you can use. Okay, look. I'm not going to make any promises, but if I can get the underwriters to agree to 50,000, are you ready to move forward with this, or is there anything that would be holding you back? Okay. What I'm doing with the tie down here is I'm basically saying, and this is how I handle any objection. If I can get you this, or if this problem is solved, are you good to go, or is there anything else in the way? So I'm basically opening the floor up for them to say if they have another concern. Because if they have one, I want to deal with it. Because if you have unanswered objections, they're going to come up by the prospect saying things like, oh, I need to think about it. I don't know. I need to pray. Like they're going to have a lot of uncertainty. So I want it to come up. Okay. Now let's assume that they say, hey, nope, I'm good to go. All right, great. So we just tied them down. They said they were good to go. Now I want to go for what's called a double tie down. So I'm just going to do it again. The way that I like to do it is I'll say, you sure? What you want to hear is them say, yeah, no, I'm sure. Well, let's do this thing. Okay. Again, like I mentioned earlier, what's more important than what they say is how they say it. So listen to the tonality of the prospect. Even if they say like, yeah, I'm good to go, they say words that are certain, but they sound uncertain, then they're not certain. So if you're ever confused by a prospect where they're telling you one thing, but they sound different, the truth is always in the tonality. They could say that they're 100% ready to go, but if they say it with an uncertain tonality, like, yeah, I think I'm 100% ready to go. Like, obviously that's not certain, right? So listen to tonality. If when you do the double tie down, you say, hey, you sure? If they sound certain, they say, yeah, no, I'm ready to go. That's a certain thing. All right, great, you move forward, okay? But if you sense any uncertainty, and I can give you very specific objection handling techniques for this, but the easiest thing to do is just to call it out. Hey, what's going on? You seem really uncertain. Talk to me, right? Again, empathetic curiosity. You care about them. The frame that I take is it's me and the prospect sitting together on one side of the table versus their problem. And me and the prospect are working together to solve the problem, right? So they're uncertain. That's fine. Me and you are going to work together. We're going to figure this out. What are you uncertain about? Let's tackle this together. That's the frame you want to come from, okay? All right, so assuming all that's handled, they say they're good to go. Now you're going to pull back to the underwriters, okay? It doesn't have to be the underwriters, but I'm basically pulling back to defer authority to some other party. It could be my partner, depending on if you're, working for someone, you can say it's my boss. Obviously, if you're the business owner, you can say my underwriters, my partner, right? But the point is that I'm pulling back because, again, I don't want to seem too eager. So I'm going to say something like, okay, like I said, I can't promise anything, but let me see what I can do. Okay, I'm going to talk to my underwriters and see if they can do this. I can give you a call back in 20 minutes. Does that work for you? Right, again, so this is the frame, is that now they see me as an ally, right? Like imagine yourself walking into a car dealership to buy a car, and you meet with a car salesman, and you're expecting the car salesman to be the guy that's trying to, sell you, and it's like, it's you versus the car salesman. But imagine if the car salesman's like, hey, look, can I be honest with you? Like, I really want to help you out, but my boss is kind of a tough guy. Like, let me work him. I know him. I think I can get a deal for you. You're going to start to feel like, man, like this guy's like actually on my side, right? And that's how you want them to feel, because when they feel on your side, that's where deals happen. Okay, so I'm basically creating that feeling by creating this other authority figure. So it's me and the prospect versus the underwriters, right? That's the idea. Okay. Anyways, so you pull back. I always do 20 minutes or so, right? Unless I have a call coming up, maybe like an hour or two as the time I call back. Always schedule this call the same day, okay? And make it a short time frame, because, okay, number one, if you make it too long, right? Like when you have a deal that's hot, you want to hit it. So don't, wait a day or two to call them back. They get other offers. So like you need to get on it. With that being said, you don't want to make it too short. Be like, can I call you back in a minute? Because like one, you seem too eager. And then two, it's not believable, right? Like 20 minutes or an hour is like a reasonable time for like you to go talk to someone and, think about it and have them relook at numbers. So like that's why you do it, okay? It also creates some anticipation, right? Because like the prospect is like, oh, like I'm about to get this deal, and like now they're like waiting, right? And so the reason that I'm talking about this like give and take, and the prospect feel like, oh, like I'm waiting, like they don't want to lose the deal, is because ultimately at the end of the day, like you want your prospect to feel like they won. Not that they got the short end of the stick or they got a bad deal. Like you want them to feel like they won, because that's why we don't want this to seem too easy. Because if it seems too easy, they get skeptical that like, man, this guy was just playing me the whole time. They probably could have offered me a lot more. That's where they come back and try and renegotiate. But when the prospect has had some skin in the game, when they've had to negotiate a little bit, right? They put up a little bit of a fight and they got their offer, right? Even if it's lower than what we originally offered, but they put some effort into the interaction, they're way more likely to stick, to be a better client. Like that's why it's important, okay? So on the next call after the 20 minutes, here's how you handle it. All right, so I spoke with the underwriters, and they agreed to do $50,000 on one condition. Prospects went, okay, what is it? I would say something like, all right, they'll do $50,000 as long as when everything is all said and done, you get paid, you're happy, You just refer us to one other person, it could be anywhere in the US, that you think might want to sell their land at some point in the future. Does that sound fair? Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a trade. Now, it doesn't need to be a referral necessarily. It could be more time on the deal. Hey, they agreed to do 50,000, but we want 90 days close, right? Again, we don't want to seem too easy. We're giving it a little bit, like this is a dance we're doing with the prospect. Sales is a dance, okay? And the reason that we're doing this is because, again, if we seem too easy, like, all right, we said they could do 50,000. The prospect is like, man, like this guy's been playing me. Like they're going to think that they're going to get more. But when you do a trade, again, you're getting them more bought in, and then like you can actually use the trade, right? So like you can use this as a way to build referrals, right? Because when things close, you can say, hey, remember those referrals we talked about? Who do you got, right? So that's why we do a trade. And again, do what you need to do for your business. It could be referrals. It could be more time on the deal. It could be that, if they have another property that you're interested in, that, you get the first right at that. And honestly, like with that type of stuff, if it's a time thing of like, hey, I need 90 days. Like, yes, you get that already in the contract. But for things like referrals, like, you can put that in a contract. I don't. It's more like a handshake style thing because it's not super serious. So just to sign up. So once we've done that, we got the deal locked up. Okay, step number 4, funding the deal. So for this deal specifically, okay, so, well, I don't want to use my own money. What am I going to do? Right? And that's probably people's most common question is, how do I get this deal paid for without using any of my own money? It's the biggest concern. I've had it before as well when I first started. I can tell you, it is easier to find money for deals than it is to find deals. Let me repeat that. It is easier to find money for deals than it is to find deals. Okay? Here's the reason why. There is a ton of capital out there. Okay? And land is insanely profitable, especially right now where we're at. It's just a niche that has not been oversaturated. And I think we have a solid 3 to 5 year window to like really heavily capitalize on it before, it starts to become more like wholesaling, where it's just like wholesaling is a total red ocean, right? This is a blue ocean. And we've got a few years to like really get in and grab that, which I think is amazing. But funding wise, there's so much margin on these deals that funders are making insane returns. Like, let's look at this. The funder that I work with, right? So he put $51,000 up basically. And then he, essentially got almost $17,000 back. So not only did he get his basis back, but he got this back as well. That's an insane return, right? Nothing offers that type of return in traditional investment. The stock market's about like 10% return a year. Like, this is a crazy return, right? Especially in a time frame. His capital was out for 36 days. So in 36 days, he made a return like that. That's why there's so much money to go around. As long as you have a good deal, and by a good deal, I mean a deal where you're buying it at 40 to 60%. Obviously, the less you have, market value wise, the property, the better, right? The steeper discount, the more meat that's on the bone, the better, deal it's going to be. But if you have a deal that's in that frame, like, you're going to find someone that's going to fund it. Okay. That's what's important to understand. So anyways, I need to find someone, okay, who's going to fund this? I had a previous relationship with someone who I've worked with before. He's a JV funder. Now, there's a lot of different ways to get funding. There's different types. There's JV funding, there's debt funding, there's short-term loans, stuff like that. Easiest thing, especially for new, is just to do JV funding. So basically what JV funding is you're partnering with someone, usually, right? A JV funder has either done JV deals in the past, right? They might be a land investor and have excess capital, but they usually have a bit more experience. And especially for new, it's great because not only are they going to provide capital, but like you can ask them questions and they're essentially partnering with you. And so they're, if you went to a bank and got a loan, like the bank's not going to know anything about land, but a JV funder will. So that could be nice for your first few deals. Okay. And they front all the costs that go into buying the property. So the actual purchase price, closing costs, and then generally anything else needs, like if you need a survey, something like that, generally the JV funders would fund that. Okay. In terms of splits, it's all different between different funders. So like on this one, I had it where if we sold it in 30 days, I got 70%. Or excuse me, we sold it in under 60 days. That's what it was. 1 to 60 days, I got 70%. And then after that, I would get 65%, right? So if I sold it in 90 days, it'd be 65%. I think 120 days was 60%. So generally it goes like the longer it takes to sell, the less you get of the deal. Okay, it's called a waterfall. So it goes down. And every funder is different, right? There's some JV funders that start at 80%, right? There's some that start at less. It just depends. And here's the cool thing about the funders, right? Especially if you build a relationship, you could probably eventually get them to offer you bigger splits. with JV funders, I mean, there's people whose entire business is just JV funding, like they're institutional funders, and they just fund stuff, right? The other thing when it comes to finding capital is like, you don't just have to go to these people, you can go to people in your network, right? Because I've had people that I've gone to that aren't traditional JV funders. They are people that are high income earners, right? They could be doctors, lawyers, engineers. They don't have the time or interest to start a business, but they make a lot of money in their job. And generally people that make a lot of money, they want to invest and make more. And so when you can show them these types of returns, right, they're more open to doing that. And so you can start to build relationships with people in your network, and you can get even better, terms with those people, right? Like you can probably get better than 70-30. It depends on the person, right? And the agreements that you come to. Okay. Like I said, there's other types of lending. You can do a debt structure where you actually get a loan on the property, not from a bank, but from someone who specializes in land. If you're new though, again, I recommend just going the JV route, especially to start, and then eventually build relationships. And then you can find funders who are going to offer better splits. But the cool thing is this, and I know some people are like, well, I don't want to give, my equity away in the deal. Like, why would I want to give 20 or 30% away? It's pretty simple. It's math. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, let's say, all I had to play with was the $51,000. Let's say that was my budget for my land. Like that's what I have sitting, and I go buy one property. I can't send out more mail. I can't send out more marketing to acquire more deals. I have to wait until that sells, right? And however long it takes, it takes. Versus if I give away a piece of the pie to someone else, but I have that $51,000, I can go send a ton of marketing, get more deals, and ultimately make more money faster. So that's why you'd be open to giving it away. That's my personal opinion. I think that's how you're going to make the most amount of money in the business, is by, instead of putting your money into the properties, putting it into marketing and just getting more deals, okay, and focusing on volume. So anyways, that's how to do it. Now, in terms of finding these people, super easy. Just go into any land group, right? Facebook, go on school.com, any land group. Wherever there's people who are learning about land, doing land, there's always funders in there, because a funder's biggest problem is deal flow. It's finding more deals, right? Because if they're funding, they're usually not doing deals. There's some people that also do, but for someone who's strictly an investor, again, they usually don't have the time or interest to build a business and learn how to do all this stuff. So they need deal flow. So they rely on relationships, and they're going to go to the place where that's happening, and that's in land groups. So go in there, post your deals. You'll be able to find stuff. Also, if you need help, just DM me or shoot me a comment. I'm happy to connect you with some people that I know. Again, as long as you have a good deal, right, you'll get funding for it. That's all that matters. So just focus on getting great deals, and the money will take care of itself. Now, step number 5 is closing on the deal and then selling the deal. Okay. So once you've gotten the funder, you need to send this to a title company or a closing attorney, depending on the state. So some states are attorney states, meaning you need to go through a closing attorney. They do the same work as a title company. It's just they have a different title, no pun intended. Okay. Now, you always want to go through a title company or a closing attorney. I would not recommend doing self-closings. Personally, never done one. I don't know why anyone would. Sure, you might save a few $1,000s, but it's complicated. It's risky. Sellers don't like it. So just use a title company. Okay. Now, after you've closed the property, it's time to sell it. So what I prefer to do, and what I did on this one, is I use a realtor to sell it. Okay. You want to find experienced land realtors. So people who have had experience selling land. There are certain companies that all they do is specialize in selling land, like Whitetail Properties, Mossy Oak, right? Those are generally only land guys. And I haven't worked with everyone at those companies, but I've worked with some good agents there, right? And there's also some who, might be of a different quality. It just depends. Every agent's different. But the people that tend to specialize in land are usually a lot better at this. What you're looking for when you find an agent, this is the biggest thing. It doesn't matter the title or even how many properties they sold. Yes, that's important, but what I care the most about is the responsiveness. The agent is a salesperson. So if I call them or I text them, they don't respond to me and get back to me a day or it takes days, that's terrible. If they do that with you as someone who could bring them dozens of deals and you could pay their entire salary for a year with your deal flow, and they're not getting back to you, how do you think they're going to be to a prospect, right? Probably not good. So you wouldn't want to work with them. The reason I think it's better to use agents versus an in-house disposition team, so people that are selling it for you in your company, yes, you could save money when you do it in-house, but you lose a lot of things, right? A land agent is local. They're going to be able to go out there. They're going to be able to walk it. They're going to have better connections, right? I think it's way better, but really the big reason why is this. If part of your business is focusing on the disposition, so you're in charge of selling it, right? You build your own sales team in-house to sell the properties, you're going to have to spend about 50% of your time trying to sell the properties, right? And negotiating with buyers and coordinating all that. Versus, what if you had a realtor that you give 6 to 8% commission to? They do all that. And then that 50% of time that you're going to spend selling the property, you focus on getting more properties, right? Again, you're probably seeing a theme here that, I've talked about, especially with funding, putting the money into marketing to get more deals, and here, putting your time instead of selling the properties into getting more properties. Because the more you can focus on volume, getting more deals, you'll be able to grow and scale faster, right? So that's the entire focus. So that's how I did this deal. If you want to learn more, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you have questions, comment on here, ask me, DM me. I'll help you out any way that I can, and hope I get to talk to you soon. See ya.